The Liberty Weekly podcast is brought to you by Tom Wood's Liberty Classroom. Sick of losing arguments with your statist friends? Fear no more. Now you can vanquish your intellectual foes with courses taught by top libertarian professors. Tool your intellectual arsenal and enroll today by navigating to www.libertyweekly.net/Liberty Classroom or by following the link in the show notes page.
Hello friends, welcome to episode 52 of the Liberty Weekly podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be interviewing the great meme lord Mance Rayder. However, before we get started here, I just wanted to have a few announcements. Today is Saturday, January 27th, 2018, and I will be joining Mance Rayder actually on his show, The Free Man Beyond the Wall, this afternoon to record. I'm not sure when that is going to be coming out, but it's the first time I'll be appearing on someone else's show instead of be interviewing someone on my show, so I'm pretty excited for that. Subscribe to his podcast to check that out. But also, the Libertarian Union is having its second State of the Libertarian Union Talk Show, which we're going to try and be live streaming and releasing the last Sunday of every month. But that one is coming up on Sunday night. So that is tomorrow night. We will be live streaming it, and it should be a whole lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. So be sure to check that out. It'll probably be streamed on my YouTube channel or the Libertarian Union YouTube channel. I'll include a link in the show notes page to those. So be sure to check that out. But without further ado, here is my interview with Mance Rayder. Hope you enjoy it. Hello friends, Patrick McFarland here of the Liberty Weekly podcast. Welcome to episode 52. This is an interview with Mance Rayder, the great meme lord, who's on the line currently. Mance runs the Twitter account at MNRothbard, and he's also the author of a great, tremendous book that you've probably heard of called Freedom Through Memedom, the 31-Day Guide to Waking Up to Liberty. How you doing, Mance? Glad to have you on again.
Doing good, man. It's good to be back. Good to talk to you.
It is, yes. I'm really glad that we could reconnect. So we were just talking beforehand on the show about one of the main things I wanted to highlight in this interview was, why did you write Freedom Through Memedom? What is the impetus behind it, and how does that reflect on the decentralized media battle that we're currently waging?
Wow, that's a lot.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, I would say from a practical standpoint, the reason I wrote it is because I could. You know, we're at a point in history where 20 years ago, if you wanted to self-publish a book, you couldn't do it. I mean, you could do it, but you needed funding from somewhere. You needed to set it up with a printer. You needed someone to set up typeset. I mean, you needed a lot of different things to be able to do it. Whereas today, anyone who writes a book that has friggin' any Word program, 2016, can write a book, turn it into a PDF, and send it off to a company like CreateSpace, which is a part of Amazon, and they'll publish it. And it's, considered self-publishing. So, that's it. The main reason I did it is because I knew I could get it out there. And that's just as simple as it gets. I mean, I think anybody who has a great idea, just write a book. You don't even have to put it into print form. You don't even have to use their print form. You could go through KDF, which is their Kindle, and you can have a Kindle set up once it's written in a matter of days, and you could have a book out. You could have a book out, a few days after you've finished it. So it's one of those things. I saw an opportunity to do it, and I did it. And I mean, that's the most practical reason. Yeah.
And I mean, look where it's got you, because we were just talking too about how you've been on, part of the problem with Dave Smith, the Lines of Liberty, some other appearances that you should be coming out in the next few days here, and interviewing Jeff Deist. Wow. I mean, what a reach already. And I don't mean to, belittle you, but you're just a regular guy with a microphone,
Yeah. I mean, that's not belittling me at all. I don't think much of, I'm just trying to get the message of liberty out there. And, I have to give so much of this credit goes to Scott Horton, who I mean, on Twitter, he followed me before I even followed him, which embarrasses me. And then, when I started my podcast, he agreed to be on it, and we did a long interview. I'm happy to say that before he even did the Thaddeus Russell interview, I asked him about himself and some personal stuff, which people don't. He said people never ask him that kind of stuff. And, we just stayed in contact. And I know that he likes memes. And I know that, I know he likes bumper stickers because I think he was the founder of libertystickers.com, and he sold it to somebody else. And, memes are sort of internet bumper stickers. And when it came time to do the book, I asked him if he would write the foreword for it. And he agreed, and he did. And, by putting my name on the cover and being able to put forward by Scott Horton, I think that opened up doors I don't think I would have gotten on Part of the Problem with Dave Smith, which, led to Mark Clare from Lions of Liberty calling me. And then, people like being able to interview people like Jeff Deist, and Michael Bolden, who I just released 20 minutes ago. I just put the podcast out there. I did with Michael Bolden at the 10th Amendment Center. I think Scott, getting Scott Horton's endorsement has helped a great deal. I mean, but I think that if the product I was putting out wasn't any good, anybody, I could have got Ron Paul's name put on that, or anyone's name put on there, and it wouldn't, no one would take it seriously. But people are taking it really seriously, and people who read this book really, really like it. I mean, it's kind of hard when you create something, and I used to write songs. I've probably written 500 songs in my lifetime. And when I look back on all those songs, I honestly think that only one of them stands up to today, that people could listen to one song and say, wow, that song can stand up, stand the test of time. So just the fact that people are reading the book, enjoying the book, and giving rave reviews about it, I'm getting great feedback. I wish more people who bought the book would put some reviews on Amazon for me, because some commies from social media who really hate my guts because they've tried to debate me, and I've wiped the floor with them. So their only recourse was to go to Amazon and just 1-star spam my reviews. And, if you look at the verified purchasers, they're all 5 stars except for 1 4-star. And the ones who aren't verified purchasers are, all 1 stars. And you can tell that they're communists because they make comments like, he advocates stealing wages from the worker, and there's nothing in my book about that. So they're just pissed off because they tried to debate me. I completely destroyed them, so they're going to try and destroy me. But even with the 3-point-something star rating that their spamming has caused, people are still buying the book, and I'm still getting good feedback about it. So I mean, when you create something, my whole thing is, and it was the same when I wrote songs. I wrote songs that I thought I would like, that I would listen to in the car when I was driving. And I wrote a book that I like to look through. And there's only one thing in that book. There's only one day in that book that I look back on, because the book is set up into 31 lessons, 31 days. There's only one day I look back on, and I probably would change it or completely delete it, because I'm constantly being fed more information. I'm constantly trying to tweak my belief system, philosophically and practically. And so there's one day in there that I'm like, I'd probably take that out. So.
Yeah, that's the editing regressies is what I call them, is that they're always there. You're always evolving. And it makes me think that someone said that a work is never finished. It's just abandoned. And that's what I've experienced through the podcast. I'm sure you're the same with editing, and stuff like that. One thing that you touched on that I really appreciated was kind of the accessibility of, maybe you would call them libertarian superstars. And we were talking again before the show, burning lots of good content about how nice these figures are and how approachable they are. Can you say a little bit about your experience kind of interacting with superstars in the libertarian movement?
Well, I think the great thing about these guys is if you tried to call them superstars to their face, they would, blush or tell you to stop.
Yeah.
Because they're regular guys. Everyone that I've talked to is just, I consider him a friend. I consider him a friend now. I think that I can contact any one of them and ask them for, hey, could you reach out to this person? I'd like to get them on my podcast. And I don't think, someone like Dave Smith, I'm writing another book and I'm already way into the third chapter of it. What I think I'm halfway done with it, and I've already sent off, I made a copy of the first chapter of the raw version, sent it off to Dave Smith and asked him to, look it over and see what he thinks. And, that's just, as busy as he is with his podcast, with his stand up, with his, the things he's doing on CNN now. He said yes. So, I think that's part of just being liberty minded and wanting to get the message out there is that, if somebody asks me, all these people, listen to me and want me to do their show and everything. But if somebody with a podcast who's just starting out and it's their first episode wants to contact me and say, hey, would you be on my first episode? As long as I can make the time, I'll do it. Shoot, we just got to get the message out there, man. That's the most important thing. It's such an important time. Look at more people are becoming disillusioned with the political process. You have Trump, who's single-handedly trying to destroy solar, the solar panel business, solar energy business. I assume so that his friends in oil and his Secretary of State and their friends can benefit more. This is a time when people should be looking to us and going, we don't really need these guys, right? The free market can take care of this, right? 95% of what we do is free market anyway. And everything that the government touches that we have to deal with, we don't want to. And, it makes it difficult and all these restraints are put upon us. So why do we need them? I think we're coming to that point. I don't think we can, you can't make an anarchist overnight, but you can certainly start getting people thinking about libertarian ideals overnight.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's kind of how I frame agorism in my mind, is just using the power of capitalism to promote our ideas. But one thing, and maybe you can riff off of this, one thing that I always kind of think of is that what we need in the agorist sphere are more bold individuals who are willing to step into the same sphere as, say, the police or the state. And maybe it starts with the Detroit Threat Management Center, Commander Dale Brown. I'm not sure if you're aware, but we need more people like that. You don't have to convince someone of voluntarism to show them that Detroit Threat Management Center is a better solution to policing than the cops,
Well, yeah, there's people, all you have to do, a real good way to explain all that stuff to people is, would you be comfortable if the government took over the food supply?
Yeah.
I had to go to the grocery store and do some shopping this morning. And everything I wanted was on the shelf. That is so simple, and it's something we take for granted. Do we want, would we want the government doing that? Would we want the government making shoes? Would we want the government making cell phones? I think agorism is amazing, but right now it's in very small doses. I was talking with Michael Bolden earlier. I said on the podcast, when I was new to liberty and I was new to the liberty movement and I was green and just trying to come up with ways how the hell can we tear this down and everything. I said, wouldn't it be amazing if 30 million people just decided to not pay taxes? What the fuck could they do?
Yeah.
And that is so obvious. It's so obvious that I honestly think you could get 30 million people to say, no, screw you. but people live in fear. People live in fear of loss. I think that's one of the. I think that's one of the hardest parts of promoting liberty right now. Is people. They've set up a nice free range prison where we can go and choose from 31 flavors. I can go to the grocery store in the morning and get everything that I need for my diet. Gas from my vehicle is almost always there. It's very rare that I go to a station and there's no gas, and usually it just lasts a very short period of time. But people fear loss, people fear discomfort, and people have these McMansions that they, especially in an area like mine, if you go a little bit further outside of the city, I mean, you can get 3,000 square feet for what a studio in Harlem in New York costs. And people feel like they're living in these gigantic mansions, but they don't realize that the police can break into your house by mistake, kill your whole family, and they get to go home at night. And they probably won't. They probably will just have a paid suspension, a paid vacation. This is not civilization. This is not freedom. People are, oh, well, you can leave the country. Well, yeah, if you have your cattle branding, if you have your book that shows your cattle brand and it shows where you're going to go, and then you get to that other free range prison and they check you out and they stamp their version of a cattle brand so you can go into their country. And then when you leave and you go back, everything starts all over again. We live in a free range prison, and it makes people just comfortable enough so that any thought of change, especially change that might hurt a little bit, they're not going to jump at it. It's going to take a small minority. It's going to take a very dedicated minority to change. And for more on that, I mean, I don't know if what people's beliefs are as far as political action. If you don't want to take political action because you believe you may be harming somebody else, but after you listen to this podcast, go listen to my podcast on freemanbeyondthewall.com, episode 76 with Michael Bolden. And Michael Bolden does not come across as an anarchist. He's the founder of the 10th Amendment Center, but his ideas about how to localize power and how to organize that, they're pretty amazing. They're pretty amazing. So after you finish listening to this one, Michael Bolden's on so many different podcasts. He was just on Mises Weekend with Jeff Deist. Just go listen to what he has to say. The guy makes a lot of sense. And it may take some political action on our part, as much as that would pain me. But it's going to take action. It's going to take action, and it may hurt for a little while. So, I mean, that's, when you think about it, you talk about agorism. Agorism is not sitting around, thinking about what you can do. Agorism is actually taking action and putting things into action. And Michael at the end of our podcast talked about black markets and gray markets and how they can help. And I mean, it's not the tool, but it's a tool, and I think it's an important tool.
Yeah, I agree, definitely. And, we were hoping, when I remember first getting into this and discovering the 10th Amendment Center, because that was Tom Woods' first episode. And my buddy Jerry and I, when we first started the show, were talking about, we had hopes for the New Hampshire project and maybe seasteading. If it, like you said, if it was just 3 million people that decided, you know what, no. And what's the government going to do? They're going to show up on national TV and, force these people en masse into some kind of concentration camp or something. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, I thought what was interesting, I can't remember who it was. I heard recently, but some people on the left, have started talking seriously about not paying taxes because they don't want it to go towards Trump, towards anything that Trump wants to do. And I can't remember. There was another person on a podcast who said that if taxpayers, people who are paying, the majority amount of taxpayers don't see the goods and services that they think they're paying for, if they don't see themselves being able to take advantage of it, that people may start, stopping to pay taxes. And I mean, if you really want to grind this to a halt, if you want to, the biggest fuck you we could give to the government is to have millions of people decide, you know what, I'm going into work on Monday morning. I'm going to grab another W-4 and I'm going to put that I have 10 dependents down. If you put 10 dependents down on a W-4, no taxes are taking it out. And you're going to get basically your whole paycheck except for Medicaid and Social Security. And if 3 million, 4 million, 5 million people did that, and then at the end of the year just said, when they got a letter said, nah, it ain't going to happen. What can they do?
Well, and the left is just crazy enough to do that.
Well, I mean, I'll support them 100%.
Oh, I would too, definitely.
Yeah. When it comes down to it, in order to get the kind of freedom that I want, I'm not having to align with the left temporarily.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I have no problems with that. Our goals have to be stated right up front. So, yours are different than mine. And when all this is over with, we part our separate ways. Larkin Rhodes said that he wrote a fictitious letter to ANCOMs, and he said, ANCOMs, if we ever find ourselves in a stateless society, don't worry. I don't want to hire you. I don't want to steal your wages. Just go your separate way. Yeah. So, yeah. But, if we need to, it's like secession, Bolden talks about secession. And if California wants to secede, because, think about this time. It used to be that, we only really heard about Texas wanting to secede, but now leftists are talking about wanting to secede. I think it's a glorious time. And I think it's a time when this, when this must be addressed. And, people are standing up to the federal government. I don't know if people realize this, but declaring yourself a sanctuary city is the biggest middle finger. Every libertarian, every liberty-minded person, no matter what you think, no matter how much you hate leftists, you should be applauding those cities that are calling themselves sanctuary cities, because they are absolutely giving the middle finger to the federal government. And if you look at and I know this can be argued, but if you look at the Constitution, if you're still a constitutionalist, nowhere in the Constitution does the federal government have power over immigration or power over borders. The only thing that that gives them power is naturalization, and that's completely different from immigration and from borders. So when I see cities standing up, Colorado legalizing weed, or I would love to see the day that a state like mine, like Georgia or Texas, declares that National Firearm Act items like short-barreled rifles and silencers and things like that, are legal, that they can buy them in the state. Oh, that's going to. I pray for days like that, because it's just going to mean that that people are looking at the federal government and going, you don't have power over here. You shouldn't be reaching this far.
Well, and this is anecdotal, but the other day I was interacting with someone from my school, and I had worked in the institutional advancement department, and she's a great lady, everything, tremendous person. She's a lefty, obviously, because of where I live. But we were talking about what I'm going to do after school. And I was bringing up, it'd be awesome to work at the Mises Institute, which is this think tank. And she said something about states' rights and gave me this gleaming look. And I knew, the inference is that it had something to do with Trump. But if even people like that on the left are waking up to states' rights, that's awesome.
Well, I mean, that's exactly what a sanctuary, these sanctuary cities are. It's basically saying, look, you have no power here. It's like, Sessions wants to crack down on marijuana dispensaries, ones that are legal within the states. Well, again, on when Jeff Dyson and Michael Bolden talked a couple weeks ago, Bolden worked out that in order for the DEA to declare war on just the dispensaries that are in Los Angeles, it would take 40% of their overall budget. There are more marijuana dispensaries in LA than there are Starbucks and I believe Burger King and McDonald's.
Yeah.
So they're, what they do is they go in, they get a budget for a bus, they go in, they clean out the cash registers, and then they leave, and the people are back in business 6 hours later. And why are they back in business 6 hours later? Because the DEA has exhausted their budget for this project. So they're losing, and they know they're losing. And that's why you're starting to hear rhetoric. They're basically, it's like a wounded dog. When a dog is wounded, all it can do really is bark to scare away another animal or another dog that might hurt him. And that's what they are. We just have to keep it up. I hate to use the analogy of a dog because I love dogs, and I hate that I just compared a noble beast to the government. Let's talk about a gator or something like that. They know they're losing their power. I mean, come on, of all the taxes that are going to be collected this year, how much of that none of that is going to go towards any programs. It's all going to go to interest on outstanding debt. And whenever they're making payments now for anything, they're just printing money. They're just going up to a keyboard, touching a button. Look at the SNAP program, food stamps. They use cards now. Look on the back of the card. It says JP Morgan Chase.
I didn't know that.
It's from JP Morgan Chase. And what do banks do? They don't lend money, they create money. Yeah. That's the whole secret of the Federal Reserve. And if you go on on the Dallas Federal Reserve website, there's a children's book that will teach you that. There's a cartoon book that will teach you that they're not lending money, they're printing money, that when you sign for a loan, you're creating that money out of thin air, and they're creating that money out of thin air. So, they're on their last legs, and it's just up to us to put something in place
for when the shit hits the fan.
so that when this all comes collapsing down, whether it be local, I want it to be as local as possible. It's like I want my neighborhood. I think what Mises said that if the United States and Canada can be separate, then New York State and Canada can be separate, and then Manhattan and Canada can be separate, and 62nd Street Manhattan and New York can be separate, and 62nd Street and Manhattan can be, and 302 62nd Street, the 302 building and 62nd Street, and the people living in apartment 3 can be separate, and then each one of those individuals can be separate and can secede. And that's the way it should be. We're individuals. The only thing that keeps us a part of a collective, as far as I'm concerned, and I'll bring it back to what I said before, is fear. We fear that if we're left to our own devices, that somebody else is going to take advantage of that. Well, somebody else is taking advantage of that right now. It's called the government. So why? and they can legally do it. They pretend that they have a mandate to do it. At least if you had guns and someone tried to take what you have, you could stand to protect you have every right to protect yourself. If the police come in to take everything you have because they think that someone in your family is a drug dealer, you have no recourse to stop them from doing it.
I was just going to say that the exclusionary rule exists. And so if the exclusionary rule is a principle in constitutional criminal law whereby any evidence obtained illegally or against the Constitution should be excluded from the trial, well, there's a development in the case law now, and this has been developing over years now, where if certain conditions exist, it doesn't matter if the government obtained the evidence illegally, it's still admissible in court. And that being, if the benefit to stopping crime is higher than the Fourth Amendment violation itself. And that's just infuriating, man. We have the Bill of Rights, but they don't fucking matter.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're gonna move the goalposts. Okay, every time we make a gain in liberty, and this is why I think that protesting all this stuff is just useless, because you make one step you make one step forward, they're going to knock you two steps back, and they're just constantly doing that. I mean, I know this is cliche to say, but I mean, could you imagine? I mean, I know I used to think that the founding fathers were a lot greater than they were. Now I don't have such a great opinion of them because, I recognize the Constitution for what it is. I actually believe the Constitution was a coup. I know for a fact now that they went to Philadelphia to add some more provisions to the Articles of Confederation, and they threw out the articles and just started all over again, which they weren't supposed to do. Now their books are starting to be written about that. Papers are starting to be written about that. It's not something that's taught in school, but they went there to amend the Articles of Confederation, and they came up with the Constitution. And the Constitution basically leaves so much language open for interpretation from the Supreme Court, 9 unelected people, that they make it say anything they want now. I mean, if they can. The whole thing with busting marijuana dispensaries at first, when they were made legal, when they were, when you had to have a card to do it in California, was they used the Interstate Commerce Clause. Someone might buy marijuana and take it over state lines. It's not what the Interstate Commerce Clause was about, at all in the first place. So it's just, I just don't see voting for your rights, I mean, there are some things that I guess you can vote for. I mean, hey, they voted for states have voted for marijuana, and now it's legal. I would like to see it decriminalized so that you could grow it in your house and you could sell it yourself, and things like that. But I mean, from what you just said, if they break into your house and it's the wrong house, but they, if they can just manufacture. If they can just, basically they're making up the law as they go along. That's right. That's what it comes down to. I mean, nobody knows every law that's out there. No one could possibly know every law that's out there. But I'm sure if they want to make a project out of you, which is an old police term, where they would, the police didn't do anything, didn't know you didn't do anything wrong. They just didn't like you. So they would just follow you around until you did something wrong, or would force you to do something wrong so that they could harass you or bust you. I think that's where we're at. What is there? The book, 3 Felonies a Day. It goes over how, without even knowing it, the average person commits 3 felonies on a daily basis. And it's a free range prison, man. Yeah. It's just a matter of when they decide it's time for you.
Well, one thing I wanted to touch on too before we had that break was the video that brought me to ANCAPism was the Stefan Molyneux's "This History of Your Enslavement" video. And I don't know if you've heard that. I've referenced it a bunch of times on my show, but just bringing that boldface, the truth of it is that you're a slave. And I touched on this too in my recent stuff, but you're a slave. It's just that the overlords realize that you'd be more productive for them to skim the cream off the top if you were allowed to think you were free, and if you were allowed to think you could choose your own profession, and if you were allowed to think that you could, aggregate all these assets together, but at the end of the day, your property isn't even yours. You still got to pay property tax. The income tax implies that you yourself are owned by the government. It implies that. It's not true, But that's the implication.
But there are some people that aren't. There are some people that are above the law. Politicians, wealthy people. I've had this theory for a long time that the wealthiest people in this country really don't own anything. I've heard, I'm able to pick up on certain things. I remember when Teddy Kennedy died, and some broadcaster was saying Teddy Kennedy was such a great man and everything. You know, when he died, he didn't even own the shirt on his back. And you have to, when you hear something like that, you have to step back and go, what exactly are they talking about? I know people who have lobbied the government over years and years to leave them alone. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but there's this old wives' tale that there's an account in everyone's name that the government uses to pay off certain things, debts and stuff like that, and that you can get access, and certain people get access to that account. Have you ever heard that?
No, this is news to me.
Yeah, allegedly there's a treasury account. I don't know if there's one in my name, but I do know people who have taken a routing number from a Federal Reserve Bank and used that, found out like the closest Federal Reserve Bank to where they were born, found out what their routing number is. It's on the internet. You can look it up. And then taken the number on the back of their Social Security card and used that as an account number and had checks made up. And they've actually used that to buy stuff and pay stuff off.
Huh.
The only problem is about 4 days later, it gets charged back and the feds come for you. So after enough people did this, some people went out there and started asking questions. And I know people who have looked for this, and tried to figure out where this account is, and then all of a sudden, they just disappear. And I'm not saying anything bad happened to them. I'm saying I think that they got access to whatever account this is. And I honestly believe that some of the, now I'm getting really conspiratorial. Now you've gotten, I've never talked really conspiratorial about any, some things. But I mean, this is one of those things that, enough people have heard. I think enough people, I heard about this on Facebook the first time. So about the number on the back of the Social Security card and people using it as a bank account. I believe that there are people who've probably been doing that for 70, 80 years. It's probably written in somewhere. There's an old saying that whenever they write a law to take away, whenever the powers that be write a law to take away your freedoms, they always have a backdoor law that exempts them from it.
Yeah, and, like Obamacare. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that I think that that's how you can see how rich people are above the law, how the old families are above the law, how the Bushes have been able to do what they do. I think that they're just, they say that, it's a gigantic, it's a gigantic inside group and you're just not a part of it. I think that might be part of it. Mm-hmm. You're the only one who ever got me to bring out this conspiratorial side. But I've actually been studying this for almost 10 years now. Oh. And it's one of the things that I've studied for 10 years. And I honestly believe that there are families that absolutely have no ownership of anything. They just have control of it. And it's one of the things that one of the quotes from centuries, from a couple centuries ago that is attributed to a Rothschild is you're better to control than to own.
You'll have to drop me some links for that, definitely, yeah, so I can.
And there was a great I think it was the very first episode of House of Cards, and Frank Underwood was looking at Remy, who used to work for him, and he said Remy had went to work for some gigantic corporation for millions of dollars, and Frank looked at the camera and said, "Remy chose money over power. You never choose money over power." Well, there's clearly making a distinction between money and power.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, anybody who's been in Congress for a couple of years, even if they are still poor from a money standpoint, they have an insane amount of power.
Yeah.
And think about someone like James Traficant. James Traficant went to jail for what? They accused him of slavery. That he was getting interns to work on his farm, stuff like that. Well, when did that happen? It happened about 6 months after he went on the House floor and started saying things like, the United States has been bankrupt since the New Deal. The money is all IOUs. He started saying things like nobody owns anything. So I don't think it's so much of a stretch to think that the most powerful out there have control of a lot of things, but probably not ownership. I mean, shit, think about it, man. Think about it. If the money's really not worth anything, if it's all just debt, the smart person would just want to control shit, not own it.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of touched on this difference between natural law and, that there is a law out there and some people are subject to it and some people control it, and I think that's just, that just connects to the fundamental message of libertarianism, that there is a natural law, there is an objective natural law, and then there's the artificial law or the laws that we have to behave, but other people don't.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, natural law can't be broken. But the thing you have to make the distinction between natural law and natural rights. A lot of people will say, our rights don't come from the government. They're natural or they're God-given or, like that. If you're going to make that claim, you have to be ready to defend those rights. You can't rely on a piece of paper. You can't rely on the government. You can't rely on a police officer. Now it's up to you. If you accept natural rights and natural law, I mean, that's really more responsibility than, legal rights and legal law, because you're saying you don't need anybody's help. So you're on your own.
Yeah. It's up to us. Like you said, we have to enforce our natural rights some way or another.
Yeah, I mean, and if someone comes at you to break one of your natural to try to take away one of your natural rights, then you're gonna have to be able to stand up and protect it.
Yeah, and that's where owning guns comes in.
It certainly does.
Yeah,
I mean, you want to. And you also want to, you don't want to carry yourself like yourself like a victim. I mean, I deal with a lot of different people on a daily basis, and most of the people I would see, and I got to give a hat tip to Owen Benjamin uses this phrase, and I've just adopted it because I think it's great. Most people are indoor cats nowadays. They couldn't survive on their own. And I have all these feral cats around me, and I would never chase them away because I look at them and I admire them. Very independent. I feed them, and it's very rare that you see somebody who would be able to survive on their own anymore. Most people are completely reliant on other people, whether it's for safety, whether it's for, I mean, I'm no farmer. I don't have a farm, but I have a stash of food that will keep me going for, a while if something happens. I think you need to be prepared. I think most people don't even think about things like that. They don't think about people breaking into their house at night and what they would do. I have a gun with me wherever I am. It's just common sense to me. I don't think I'm a badass. I don't use it to intimidate people. I would only ever use it. I would only ever pull it out to actually use it. Having a weapon and being able to protect yourself is not about intimidation. I mean, look at the martial arts. The classic martial artists, the ones that you want to look up to, are not people that would go looking for a fight, or that you would even look at and think, wow, that person, could probably kick my ass. They're self-aware and ready, It's one of the things that, if it came down to, like, we talk about Ancapistan, the state just disappears. Well, I could live in Ancapistan, but there's going to be a lot of people left over who are going to want to form their own government or commune or, things like that. And as long as I'm left out of it, I don't have any problem with that. But, I don't see, people have no thirst for, people have been in a cage for so long, they have no thirst for freedom.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we're trying to do, I suppose, is trying to spread this culture of self-responsibility and accountability. And I think that's a big part of, Dave Smith always says we have to fight the culture war because culture matters. Well, and like you said, if Ancapistan happened tomorrow, a lot of people would still beg for the state because they have no self-responsibility. They have a culture of victimhood, and that's what, you get a state when you have that.
Well, and they also have no education in how a market would work. Here's the thing that when people argue against a stateless society, what they don't understand is the people who know how to do stuff, they have a rational self-interest in keep producing so that they can have for themselves. And that's how businesses would grow organically, is they would, or the person who runs the water treatment plant. I mean, with the people who run the water treatment plant, the state-run or city-run, county-run water treatment plant, would they not want to go to work the next day just to make sure that the water's clean and still usable? I mean, if people want to survive, they'll figure it out. That's why I don't, that's why I don't understand why people would, why people are so fearful of it. They just don't, they haven't thought about it. And there's, just like I said, so much fear.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people would, against the whole chaos argument, because I've been getting that a lot lately, is that, in this kind of anarchic society, people would realize that, do I want to kill someone and take all their stuff, risking great bodily harm to myself? Or would it be easier to trade something I don't need for something that person has that I need? There's a risk there.
That's even assuming that they'll, that you'll have to trade. Walter Block has written, Murray Rothbard wrote about how companies would come up with their own currency and they would compete against each other. I don't think that would happen overnight, but hey, think about it. We have Bitcoin, we have all these altcoins. If something were to happen, we have, there's a currency to use right off the jump.
Yeah.
I think people would use it. I've had Vin Armani on my show twice talking about cryptocurrency, and most specifically, how it started out, how it was going to be, decentralized, and how it would be mined. And, I complained about how, no one was ever supposed to pump fiat into this and use it as an investment. And, he pointed out rather brilliantly that when somebody creates something and throws it out there, you can't control how people are going to use it. So, I mean, I actually think that, if everything collapsed tomorrow, there'd still be people who want dollars.
Yeah.
even though they'd be useless. But I mean, if cryptocurrency has taught us anything, it's that people are looking for different ways, for more decentralized ways. I mean, I actually think that Amazon is going to start accepting cryptocurrency very soon. They've bought a couple domain names. So if one of the biggest companies in the world starts accepting cryptocurrency, how long before everybody does?
Yeah.
And you're going to be walking around with I already have it on my phone. I have my I have my QR codes all set up in a folder and everything for, ready to scan whenever anybody wants to, anybody wants to implement that. I have a few cryptocurrencies that I'd be willing to trade for goods and services.
Yeah, likewise. Maybe this would be just my ignorance showing, but could someone make a cryptocurrency based off of 223 or 556 rounds?
I think you can make a cryptocurrency based off of anything. I think the blockchain is amazing.
Yeah.
Trade. Look at something like Zcash, which is Scott Horton is doing on his show, is one of the sponsors of his show. I mean, it's a messaging service. You can send documents along the blockchain. I mean, this is only the beginning, man.
Yeah. Well, I've heard
think about when this bubble pops.
Yeah.
When this stock market bubble pops and this housing bubble and the bond market bubble, I mean, when this shit pops, everything's going to pop. And just imagine those of us who have some cryptocurrency and who have a considerable amount, the advantage that we're going to have over a lot of different people, over most people, because people are looking at it as an investment. So they put some into it and then they pull it out when it starts going down, where I put it into it, if it goes up, hey, cool. Might take some fiat currency out to do some stuff with it. But to me, this is the future. And I'm not going to, I'm going to have a good bit in there so that when all this does start going to shit, I mean, at least in the short term, when this bubble eventually pops, I don't know when it's going to happen, but it has to happen soon. They just can't. There are too many indexes that should be going up that are going down, with the stock market with the Dow Jones being over 26,000 I saw today. And that's just, come on. Mm-hmm. Come on, this is, and the housing market is up above where it was in 2007. So, come on, this is just a house of cards, and it's just a matter of time. And all those people out there supporting Trump, he's taking all the credit for it. Guess who's going to get the blame for it?
Yeah, right. I
mean, if you want to take credit for it while it's going up, you're going to have to take credit for it when it's going down. Or I'm sure it'll be a conspiracy theory that, somebody's out to get him.
4D chess is what it is. But and Peter Schiff was saying, and to get the contrarian view on cryptocurrencies, but Peter Schiff was saying he's ringing the alarm bells. In his most recent podcast, he's been saying sometime in 2018 or 2019 it's going to come down. So
cryptocurrency?
No, not crypto. Well, he's been saying cryptocurrency could be any minute, but
he's been saying that for a while.
Yeah, the whole house of cards.
He's a gold bug. I mean, most gold bugs do say that.
Yeah, I'm both. I don't know. I diversify.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
you have to diversify. I mean, if when the bubble does pop, gold. I have gold and silver, and they'll both be worth a lot more.
Oh hell yeah!
But I think crypto is really going to go through the roof. So, yeah, I mean, but yeah, I know Schiff. I listen to Schiff too, and when he starts talking about cryptocurrency, I'm just like, whatever, Peter. I know you're a gold bug. It's fine. If you're true, if what you're saying turns out to be true, I'll give you all the credit and I'll say you were right. But I mean, I agree with him. I mean, it's going to happen before the next general. It's going to happen before the next general election, and it's going to be painful. Man, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to suffer because a lot of people are dumping their money into this.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people that, people are like, when XRP got above like $2, my cousin who's in the army in Hawaii is texting me going, dude, should I buy XRP? I'm like, why would you want to buy something as it's going up?
Yeah. Right.
I'm like, this is what suckers do. I mean, this is how people who run the markets get rich, is because suckers get in at the top, and then when it goes down, you sell off, and you're like, well, I'm just going to have to take the loss and everything like that. And I'm like, I told them, I said, look, if it goes down to 50 cents again, buy it 50 cents.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not like you could sit there and graph cryptocurrency like you do the stock market, Elliott waves and Fibonacci. I mean, sometimes it works the same way, but mostly it's just, look at what it's been doing over the past since Christmas. It's basically gone down and sideways.
Mm-hmm.
So, who knows what it's doing right now?
Yeah.
All I'm just doing is, holding on to it because I see that, when disaster strikes, it'll be a backup, along with gold and silver.
Yeah, that's pretty much my attitude as well, and when the shit hits the fan, we'll be here with the message. I guess that's all, with all of our preparedness and the message. I guess that's all we can do. But we're running up here on a hard time limit. But I wanted to thank you so much for joining me again on the podcast. It's really a pleasure to have you on.
Well, the book is called Freedom Through Memedom, the 31-Day Guide to Waking Up to Liberty. And the more time goes by, I look at it and I really think it can be something that can be very useful for bringing people to liberty, and definitely bringing people to have a strong distrust for central government.
Yes, definitely. And what do you want to plug your second book? I know we touched on it, but just talk a little bit about it.
Well, I don't have a title for it yet. I'm thinking about a title, but I don't know if I actually want to go. If I were to choose this title, it would be so obvious that I might want to not use it. But it is going to be a book basically outlining the culture of the left, and it goes everything from how leftist politicians, leftist newscasters. The second chapter is about college professors. The third chapter, which I'm doing right now, is just about the complete insanity of what's going on college campuses and how some of it is spilling off into the corporate world. And, just yesterday today I took a day off from it. I try to write something every day. Yesterday I finished doing a little expose on what they call cultural appropriation, which is some of the biggest horse shit you'll ever hear in your life. It just makes absolutely no sense. And then I'm going to have to get into the more violent movements, Antifa, shutting down free speech on campuses, things like that. And then, I'll probably cap it off with, looks like the fifth chapter. What I'll probably do is I'll cap it off with how we can fight this and, what the answer is. And it'll always come back to liberty. And I'm thinking about putting in an essay entitled "The Left Can't Meme."
Awesome.
And it'll be an essay at the end on my take on why it is impossible for the left to meme, because the left memes are cringy and they're painful. As somebody who thinks that, as somebody who looks at memes as a form of art and communication, I look at left memes as somebody just shit in their hand and threw it up on a wall. It's friggin' the worst. So yeah, that'll probably be the last thing that I would include. But yeah, it's going to be a look at the culture. Andrew Breitbart famously said, either way, culture is upstream from politics, or politics is downstream from culture. And I think that culture needs to be attacked, because that culture, along with the power of the state, is a great threat to freedom.
Yeah, definitely.
And it needs to be exposed for what it is: complete insanity. And yeah. I think that this, I was just looking back at some of the things I just wrote in the last couple of days, and I'm just like, God, this is ranty. But it's like I'm starting to borderline get into Hunter S. Thompson territory here, just laying into these complete lunatics. Because they are. When you start really sitting down and looking at certain subjects, things that they've done, cultural appropriation, white privilege, all this stuff, anybody preaching this stuff has to be in a mental institution. These people need to be in straitjackets, or they're friggin' dangerous. And I don't think people realize exactly how dangerous they are.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say I lived it for 4 years at the University of Minnesota in the English department. So
I couldn't even imagine, man. Not now. Nope. I mean, there was some when I went to college. There was some liberalism there, but it wasn't pervasive. I wouldn't be able. I'd be kicked out in 2 days.
Well, that's why I joined Young Americans for Liberty, because I thought it was, doing something at least to strike back. Anything just to shine a light on the absurdity that they put forth. Well, and I was going to say, unfortunately, we're kind of alone, because when I was in Young Americans for Liberty on a campus of about 80,000 people, there were 4 or 5 members. So
you can still be a thorn in someone's side if you're just 4 or 5.
Yeah, you just got to be loud.
Yeah, well, you have to be clever.
And clever, yeah. Do the right kind of provoking. But for our audience, how can they follow your work and your podcast?
I'm on Twitter a lot at MN Rothbard. My website's freemanbeyondthewall.com. If you go on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, eBooks, I've started putting some stuff up on DTube. Just search Mance Rayder and it'll come up. And on Amazon, my book's on Amazon. If you search Mance Rayder, it's the first thing that comes up. So that's about it. Check out the podcast. It's I had someone tell me who's listened to every single one say I'm getting better and say you're really, really improving. And I'm like, that's all I want to hear. Just friggin' be honest with me. If I have a bad podcast, tell me. I want to friggin', I want to get better. So, feedback, if you do it on iTunes, please leave a review of what you hear and be honest. I mean, if you think my podcast is absolute shit, leave a 1-star review and tell me. If you think it's good, just be honest.
Well, and likewise with me, because I don't get any feedback. Like, you can probably say, through your experience, feedback is so valuable, like the most valuable thing you can get.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm in a private Twitter group, and the people who are in there, we've talked amongst ourselves so much and for so long now, they're really honest with me. And I appreciate that more than anything, because most people, once they get to know you and everything, they're really not going to give you any, they won't be too critical. They won't be critical though. Oh yeah, that was, I knew it being in a band forever. I'd write a song and we'd play it and I'd be like, what'd you think of that song? Oh no, it was great. It's great. Dude, I know that song shit.
Yeah.
So just be honest with me. I want you to be honest with me. You're not going to hurt my feelings. Believe me.
Yeah, definitely. You can't have thin skin doing what we do.
If you put yourself out there, you have to be open to criticism.
Yeah.
And open to spammed 1-star reviews from commies who haven't moved out of their parents' house yet.
We'll give better review for more money.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw that one. All right, well,
that's a good one. Yeah.
Let's end it on that note then. Mance Rayder, everyone, thanks for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Patrick, man. You take care.
Will do.
In the early days of the internet, radical libertarians were scattered, lonely, and faceless. Without direction, they resigned to scour the web, sifting through content providers in a wasteland plagued by YouTube demonetization, Facebook jail, and covert internet censorship. But then, in 2017, the Libertarian Union was formed. Finally, the average Joe libertarian could find a thriving community of independent podcasters and content providers, all in one convenient location. At Libertarian Union, we'll always have the latest news, interviews, discussions, and even movie reviews. With hundreds of episodes and more added all the time, you'll always find something fresh at libertarianunion.com.